Bet you're wondering if I'm in sync. Hey, what's up, Scott Walker, of the Imagination Creation Films, and today it is January the 26th of 2024, and I should be in sync. I should even be in HD, that fine 1080p quality. We'll see. We'll see if it's actually going to work, because you know my luck. But it is a wonderful, fantastically, deliciously fantastic day, and there's your puppy cam for you, because that's all anybody ever comes to show to see. How am I? How am I? How am I doing? No, how am I in sync? I actually want to know, because I have a way to reset it, but it shouldn't go. I've literally done days. I mean, it's been weeks and weeks and weeks, but it's days and days and days of testing. Yeah, it should be a great live stream today. We are going to have a couple of special guests. We will be having Mr. Jared Land on from Red. Y'all may know him as, like, the guy. We will also be having Mr. Holland, Mr. Phil Holland, on again. He is, I think, probably the very first user of the new V-Raptor-X that was just announced yesterday. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We don't have our guest here yet, so we'll just just chit chat a little bit here. They know the drill. They know when to come on in. So right off the bat, let's see here. Get those likes up. I like where your head is there, King. What do y'all think of the lighting? Lighting a little bit better? Get a little nicer in here. Get a little more vibey, feely, all that good stuff. Hope so. Hopefully the nice quality, because if it stays in sync and the quality is good, then I'm going to continue to stream in this quality, in this way, and we'll see what happens. All the good things. Gonna be like, oh, thanks, Scott. Appreciate you making that note. That's great. Brandon says, I want it to be known that I have already hit the like button. Well, thank you, Brandon. I appreciate that. That is so thoughtful and caring of you. Caleb says, this is awesome. Gregory says, hello, world. Hello, Gregory. And thanks for being a channel member and a long supporting producer class channel member, no less. Very nice, sir. Thank you. Kevin says, let's do this. Indeed, let's do this. Boy, Kevin, I bet you're starting to think now. It's like, whew. Each little step up that Red goes, you're like, ooh, yeah, I can tell. What is the Texas equivalent of Hollywood? We don't really have one, but Dallas and Austin both have a pretty good film scene. We do a lot around on that, but we don't really have a Hollywood, although they are definitely they're definitely claiming that they're going to be producing one here very soon, like a 500-acre complex, like an hour and 15 minutes south of me, and yeah, we'll see. Luca, hello, Luca. How are you? I always do that because Luca's like, hi. Caleb says, synced for me. Excellent. In Sync, yes. It's a very good band, yes. Gaming, Austin, Texas, pretty close, yep. Timmy Doust says, hello. I think the lighting looks great. Tim did help. I called him up and I was like, dude, help me dial in this lighting. It looks so bad on streaming. We played with a few things and he got me on the right path. I always appreciate my friends. Joe Nunez, Film Tools. How's it going there, buddy? You got stock, or you all sold out of your VRaptor-X's? I bet you got at least a waiting list you could put people on. Gregory says, hey, Tim, hey, Joe, hey, Brandon. Yep. Phil Holland. Hey, my friend. Michael Sutton. Oops. Wow, they're coming in fast here. Michael Sutton, yo. Y'all see, I mean, it was funny. I was shooting my review yesterday of the X plate, the X side for the Komodo X, when Jared, like, I don't know, just flipped the script, changed everything around. So you have to wait a couple more days for the the review on this one. Hello, everyone. Joe, Gregory. Hello, Sir Holland. Is that the Phil Holland? Yes, that is the Phil Holland. The Phil Holland. Uh, La Roja. Hola. Uh, Clark. Hey, Clark. Greetings from Montana. Very well. Very, very cool. Love Montana, by the way. It's beautiful up there. Hey, Michael. Hey, Gregory. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, while we wait for our guest, yeah, Red, just out of the blue yesterday, we were all expecting to get an EVF and maybe a little tease of a couple of other things, but we got a completely new sensor, which is like, what? I was not at all expecting that, and when things started popping out uh, on the on Facebook, I was like, what's happening? And then global shutter, full frame, well, just division. Yeah, that's not a small feat at all. Very 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 challenging, I'm sure. And I I tell you, man, it just really, really kind of caught me off guard. Was not expecting that at all. Let's see here. Get the Joe says some of y'all are snoozing on that EVF eclipsed by the Raptor X. It's true, Joe. Uh, the the things I'll say about the EVF. Number one, it is basically the same EVF as previous, but uh, you got camera control in there, and then it's the mount system is actually really cool. I really like that. We have a guest on, one of our guests. Oh, we have both of them. We'll screw it. We'll just put them both on there. Y'all both ready? Yep, we're good. We're good. All right. So please let me welcome here first Mr. Jared Land.
All right.
And Mr. Phil Holland.
Hey, Phil.
What's up?
Yeah, Phil.
I'll wave.
Phil got a camera early, so he well, not early, I guess, pretty early.
I was up until early testing it.
So, Mr. Land, how are you?
Banner here that's for the salt and pepper.
Oh yeah,
That's so awesome. I love it.
It's Fox approved, though.
Yes, it is. Foxes love it. We got to get Carlos on here somehow too.
Yeah,
he just got his.
Yeah, they're just showing up everywhere. It's like, wow, these things just like out of the blue.
That's kind of the point, no?
It certainly can be.
It's really fun with you because you're guessing, and then I know you hear little rambles from the interweave, and I like it to be a surprise. It's kind of cool.
You do, and people out there, they're constantly going, oh, Scott's got one early. You already know he's got whatever. I don't. I really don't. And I sit there and I like poke. I'm like, so I'm thinking what I saw was, and I'm thinking, and you're like, that's dumb.
Yeah, you make enough guesses where even if you get some of them right, they just all look like a blur.
Yeah,
it's true. I'm constantly just so. Jared, tell us a little bit. Let me think here. How do I? What?
I was on with Brandon Washington this morning. I think you were there too.
Yeah, that was cool. I enjoyed that.
I love that guy. He's pretty rad. So exciting. So I'm all yours. I don't know what questions you have to ask. Oh.
So I might have more questions for you, and
we'll definitely load up. I think somebody had a question right off the bat, which I thought was actually pretty well. I almost hit the wrong button.
Oh yeah, but
right here. Oh yeah. What is the challenge technically with dynamic range and global shutter?
So, I mean, with us or traditionally, you're gathering light all at once and dumping it. So for us, the difficulty really is not in the sensitivity of it. We've kind of cracked that. Our engineers are miracles, but it's dumping it off because you're capturing it all at the same time. Then you got to dump it off instead of a sweep like you normally do. And I think I was talking to Phil about this. Even though it's the same time, of course, within your frame, you still have to dump it at once. So that's what we're kind of tweaking right now. It's the last little bit we have to finish up. That's why if you look, and Phil's probably seen this in your settings, there's a few resolutions, like I think in 2K, the frame rates are still there, just the resolution is down a little bit, which you can, it's down a very little bit from the normal 2K. You can just up-res them that pretty easily. So we kind of chose the resolution instead of lowering the frame rates. But that's really the last little bit that we have to overcome. The extended highlights is something, and I think a lot of people are confused about that today. They're trying to figure out like it's some magic marketing gimmick, but it's really not. I mean, it's, again, I made in my post, it's Graham with the help of Lauren bashing on this, and it's amazing seeing the algorithm kind of come together after, I think they're on, well, at least I've seen at least 30 or 40 revisions of this. And if you just ignore the extended highlights, the fact that rolling shutter raptor and global shutter raptor are so close in dynamic range is kind of unheard of. We got that close with Komodo. We're closer on, we're a little bit better on Raptor, but when we came out with Komodo and the dynamic range, people couldn't believe it. They thought we were lying about that. But so Raptor and OG Raptor, I guess we can call it now, and VRaptor-X, the fact they're so close together is kind of all people need to think about. And then when you take the extended highlights, which is like HDRX times 1,000,000, that just gives you that extra kind of safety above when, as I explained this morning, when you have something like, where am I? Like if this window was, white and nuclear, normally if you wanted to see the stuff back there, you would just kind of go down and then lift everything up afterwards. With extended highlights, you don't have to adjust your exposure to get that back, because there's there's almost 3 stops there to get it back. And I know Phil's been testing that out for the last 24 hours, but it's really a cool kind of safety more than anything. So, you don't have to sacrifice the shadows to bring back some of those, you don't want to make an exposure decision on the whole thing with that on. I mean, you could, but there's no real reason to. It's just to get those little things that you want to bring back that sometimes you don't even notice until, after the fact. But it's just kind of like the icing on top of some really great technology.
So it's in camera, but is it baked in?
No,
it can't be baked in really.
So yeah, so it is in camera. I mean, it does it in camera, so you can, on the monitor, you'll see the effects of it. And if you're recording ProRes and R3D, you'll see this on the monitor, and you'll see that in that kind of jump boxes that you get with ProRes when you're recording R3D. I call it jump boxes, but people, that's what everybody else actually records in. But so the one that happens in camera, the combination, we'll call it, that happens in camera isn't as good as when it does it in the SDK or in Red Cine, for example, Red Cine X, for example. That's a better, and that we did that because, again, this is brand new to us, and we're still tweaking some of the motion and some of the, they're still going through revisions. So it's the best way to do it. It's in that raw kind of domain where you can turn it off if all of a sudden, that nuclear looks weird when all of a sudden you have, because it is kind of weird seeing that much dynamic range in one swoop. And if you have some weird motion, sometimes some crazy motion, you can have artifacts. That lets us kind of fine tune that stuff after the fact. So the answer to your question is both. Oh God. How do I?
Amazing.
How do I turn this off? I don't know.
While you're doing that, I'm going to pop in Mr. Carlos because he's here.
Oh yeah!
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Huge party.
He's already got it rigged up there.
Yeah, he's like,
as soon as I opened it, I was like, I'm building this and I'm going to start shooting and learning.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, yeah. Carlos was our kind of upgrade experiment because we didn't actually, his camera was brand new. He got it a month ago. And we should, I'm glad it was the experiment because, it was going to Texas. It was an adventure that we learned a lot from. So I'm glad he finally got it today. That was great. And I haven't talked to you, Carlos, about it yet. Are you happy? Have you actually?
Yeah, I'm beyond stoked. I honestly, if you would have asked me a few weeks back how to improve it, I would have. I don't know that I had anything to say about it. And now shooting on this with global shutter, it's almost like Komodo X on steroids. It's like everything that I loved about Komodo, except with all the power of Raptor. It's kind of really cool. And obviously I got a lot to go through here, but I can't say enough. This is beyond anything I would have ever expected.
Nice.
Phil, you got something to say. I know it.
Oh,
yeah,
I was pretty much ready to tackle a FedEx delivery guy. And when it arrived, I rigged it up, made sure I knew where everything was. And then pretty much outside of like eating dinner until 4:00 in the morning, this morning, I've been just doing all sorts of tests. And there's so much to chew into. Unfortunately, yesterday we had a sunny day here in California. It's been raining where I live. So yesterday was nice to have some clouds and bright daylight, blue sky. So I did a little bit of outdoors work, a lot of indoors, and a lot of lab tests. And I'm going to do that throughout the weekend. I think I'll start with the global shutter because we know from Komodo a lot of the gains there. For people who are doing more technical shooting like virtual production, it's obviously shown a lot of strengths. But I think a lot of things we don't talk about is camera operation. I've certainly mentioned even on Scott's stream, rigging a Komodo to a car, just literally rigidly mounting it. You don't have any issues with those vibrations. It actually turns into a sensation, a feeling that you get out of the shot rather than something that's going to create an artifact. And one of the other things that, a lot of filmmakers know this, when you're shooting wide to ultra wide and telephoto to super telephoto, your pan speeds on a rolling shutter really become a factor. And for a lot of wildlife people who are chasing cheetahs or things like that, if you got things going zigzaggy, you sometimes see trees on some of this footage that people have to either fix and post if they can. So now all that's gone. You just have something where you can have a very natural feeling as you're tracking subjects, even fast-moving subjects. So that's been a nice thing to uncover, but that was kind of like a known quantity for me. And then obviously the thing that I tested the most is this extended highlights that we're getting off of whatever the medley of global vision features are. And boy, do I got a lot of thoughts. It shouldn't work as good as it does. It's very impressive. I'm not much of a sensationalist, but if you know how to use this, it's quite good. Like really good. Like it's been mentioned, and not to get too technical, Raptor at ISO 800 is about 8 stops above 18% gray. When you enable extended highlights, you get 11 plus actually. And it's shocking. It's a thing that you can toggle on the camera and regain a lot of information. And Jared got most of the stuff I was doing during the day in real time. I was messaging him as I was like, oh, this is crazy. I set the camera up at ISO 250 with no ND outdoors and was filming. And then I started experimenting further by forcing the camera lower, which you can do with the exposure adjust in the Red Control app and things like that. And obviously in post, I want to really help people how to get the best out of this. But I shot as low as ISO 12.5 yesterday and have good looking footage. You should not be able to do that. I haven't done that with anything before. But it is shocking, and I'm still discovering how to do lots with it. And for me, there's two major themes here that I think are amazing. VRaptor-X is the 4th generation VistaVision sensor from Red. And there's been interesting incremental improvements in frame rate, dynamic range, color, so much stuff. But going back to the previous generation cameras, we did have a feature called HDRX, which a lot of people think this works the same as that. And while in concept, in terms of getting the data back, yes, but how it's implemented, no. They're entirely different things. Yeah. And it's an incredibly intelligent way of doing it that I see room for refining long-term as things improve, even with the sensor tech and stuff. So it's super exciting. But like I told Jared, hey man, I'm shooting ISO 100 for the first time and it's awesome. Shiny car, it's white in broad daylight.
Is there any possibility that parts of the enhanced highlights can come to any of the other flavors, any of the other cameras? Is that, or does it require everything that's in Raptor-X?
I see a lot of those questions in the. I've just figured out how to read the comments in the side here. Thank you very much. After 3 years of doing this, but you're
not supposed to skip ahead. You're supposed
to. So of course the extended highlights and the algorithm needs global shutter. So that's not for the normal OG Raptor. It's just not going to work. You'd end up getting something like the original HDRX, which had all sorts of problems. Now for Komodo X, it's just a hardware horsepower problem because it's the combination of both that you need. Oh,
every time you're not allowed to have something, you get balloons.
How does this mean balloons? I don't understand.
I don't know. Now it's confetti.
So that, you know, and Global Vision is much more than just the extended highlights. It's got a lot of the virtual production stuff that the Komodo X already is doing. You know, we're experimenting with some of the ghost frame stuff, and again, it's just a limitation of hardware, frame rates, and everything recording both of those. It's very difficult to do. Remember, our cameras used to have specific, really expensive ASICs just with this baked in, and that was a little bit easier on HDRX. Now what we're doing is kind of like if you took HDRX and did it 6 times in a row instead of just 2 tracks, because we're looking in time. So we're actually looking at training. HDRX was just a shutter thing. 2 different shutters, combine them and have a nice day. Extended highlights were actually traveling in time. And that's what the algorithm kind of affords you. And you can imagine the horsepower that takes.
Well, so, I think the one that I reminded some of the old school Red shooters who, you know, they're pining for the old features like HDRX and things like that. Yeah. And I had to sort of say, you know, Monstro topped out at 300 megabytes a second. And when you enabled HDRX, you halved the data rates and halved the frame rates. With Raptor-X, you half the frame rates, but you double the data.
Exactly.
And you basically are shooting like a really high quality in generally at speed, which in my world means 24 to 30 frames per second. That's all still happening in HQ. And the quality there is absurd. It's just, it looks really nice.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you know, the Komodo X kind of took over virtual production unintentionally. It's kind of intentionally, if you ask Jeff Goodman, because that was his baby. But it did a really, really great job with the global shutter and the IQ, the image quality. But a lot of those virtual production customers, like, come on, and they all have. Carlos is a great example of this. I've got a Raptor, but I'm shooting virtual production. I'm shooting a Komodo X, which is awesome. But, it'd be great to have my Raptor and all the extra horsepower to do some of the more advanced stuff. So we'll probably see this RaptorX really kind of embrace virtual production on all levels, because with that extra horsepower, especially that ghost frame stuff, which is just insane.
And you can monitor both signals, right?
Yep. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you're recording both. And, they've kind of figured it out. So it's really a talent issue right now, because and I can't remember if it's the Brompton or megapixel, when you get a little, like when they're interweaving the frames, you can see the flashes of green, because they can literally show you a green screen and, whatever Unreal's generating at the same time, invisible to the talent's eyes. And that's it's a great safety thing, because the problem with virtual production is over green screen is you can't really fix it in post. Once you shoot it, that's kind of the whole point of it. But to have that backup track green screen, especially if you get some aliasing, or if you kind of slip over a little bit too far, because shooting at an angle on a wall sometimes causes problems. You get this beautiful safety, or like you said, Scott, in your review video, if you have two different cameras shooting two different angles, you can have two completely different things without seeing these floating weird bubbles kind of going along in the background, which really does interfere with talent. The actors have to deal with most of it now.
Tyler says you can
go ahead.
click on the little green camera on your screen at the top, and that'll turn off your reactions. But I kind of don't want you to turn them off. I like it when you get random balloons. It's just your everyday balloons,
I figured it out now. It's the peace sign.
It's you're running for president.
You guys know I have a visual effects background, and one of the other really powerful things with the ghost frame concept. So with virtual production, a lot of productions right now are shooting, talent with the screen. You just get that, and that will still go through a color and sometimes visual effects pass. But with ghost frame, you're getting what we used to call the GS raw, the green screen raw, as well as a plate. And if you have to do any element separation from the talent from the background to either grade or add, say, effects that might exist between the talent and the screen, like snow, you can do that with the elements being captured this way. It's actually really sick and has ramifications for beauty passes, relighting, all sorts of stuff. So I think it's going to be very new for some folks, and it's going to be fun to play with.
It really is. And like I was saying this morning, I can't wait till these screens come down to, consumer prosumer level, where you don't have to, be crazy, because you just can't even. I know Samsung has some kind of version you can buy for your house, but each square is 400 watts, and you need 3-phase power and air conditioning in your living room. There's never going to be. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, a friend of mine, he just put in his order for a 7x12. It was a 1.9 for $12,000. He said the 1.2 was only 15, so they've come way down.
They're down, but they're still power hungry, and they're still kind of just, the prices come down for the old technology. It's when we get, things that are like our, 1x1 light panels that customers and consumers, this will be great for normal random non-filmmaker people to have in their house when they just go to Best Buy and buy 20 of these things to make their 98-inch television with.
With the Phantom track, I feel like we're just moments away from someone actually doing it, where they shoot the same scene in two different environments. If they say they're not really sure on one environment, they can shoot them both at the same time and have the same performance. You can have Blu-ray editions, even though there's no Blu-ray anymore.
Yeah, as long as you're not using auxiliary lighting, that's the only.
That changed, right, for sure.
Yeah, that changes. But it opens up that possibility, which I think is really incredible. So it's pretty exciting. Got a lot of monitor. I want to talk about the EVF.
EVF, yeah, definitely want to get to that.
Something new too, because I think that's. But it's going to be a long explanation, I think. So we should get to that. I think everybody's got the camera stuff already.
Go right ahead. You have the floor, sir.
All out of the way.
Well, there's going to be all over the place. But,
it's all over the place.
I'll say first and foremost, I'm happy you kept the EVF small. Relatively small.
So that was right. So the EVF is, and it's better. So the EVF right here, this is the 3 version, but it looks exactly like the DSMC 2 version, just different markings. But it's better software right now, and so the brightness and the black levels, we've kind of upgraded all those. So if you're using your DSMC 2 EVF or this new one, on the it has to be a DSMC 3 camera, it'll look a lot better. So we're really happy to have that. And Phil, what you just said was kind of the struggle we're still going through, but we've kind of made up our mind, but not really. So I wanted to take this opportunity because we went down 2 paths. We've got our normal guy here. So if you have both of these, this is the big one. This is a big monster truck one. And this is the DSMC 3 one.
Wow.
And they're very, very different.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is this one we all know and love. And people complain it's expensive, but it's the cheapest Pro EVF you can buy right now. And I think it's $4,000 and you get all the cool bits with it. Now, this big one is $12,000.
That I want to underline. You're a tall man with big hands, but that's still relatively small.
It's the same size as
true.
It's like the Astro one. We leaned into them for this one. The camera is tricking you. It's actually a pretty big. If I go back a little bit, it'll be
okay. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, the camera
what is Are they both OLED? Are they the same res, or is there stuff different on that front?
Both. There's a bunch of differences, and there's no question the expensive one is better. The question, this is where it gets kind of interesting for us. For Arri to make this decision when they have $100,000 cameras or $60,000 cameras, and you say, okay, your EVF is $10,000. People are like, yeah, okay. We have to have the EVFs that kind of swing from our, Raptor XL all the way down to Komodo X. People see this $12,000 price, they're going to have a heart attack, which is why we went with this one first. People still have a little bit of a heart attack, but it's an understandable heart attack, and it's awesome. Now, we've put both of these out to a few people to test, and they ended up picking this one with some wildlife guys. This one is better, marginally better, but the size and weight, single cable, blah, 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 blah. They end up choosing that. So it's kind of, I wanted all of your opinion here on should we still, because we made a bunch of these things already, the really expensive ones, and we're going to rent them out to big productions because we've got a few of them, so the big dogs that need it can rent it through rental houses, etc. But I'm trying to get an understanding on, like, would any of you say, okay, I'll buy it, I'll spend $12,000 on an EVF?
I'm in a slightly different category, but I'm grounded and I talk to rental houses and things like that. I think for people who are rigging up with XL and renting out those bodies a lot, they don't connect the same way. The big one uses SDI.
Yeah.
So if you have the SDI port on the XL, It's almost like you're giving people the Ferrari solution there, where you're getting the best of the best. So I think that's a no-brainer. I think when you're rigging it up on the smaller cameras, that thing is about half the size of the camera, essentially. So
twice the price of the camera.
That's
exactly. It's insane.
I mean, that EVF would work on Komodo. Oh, gee.
I'm a little bit with the wildlife folks because I travel sometimes hiking into places, certainly flying into places. Having something that's a little bit more lightweight is very impackable, is very powerful for someone like me.
Yeah.
And I tend to agree. Miniaturization has been probably the most obvious industry trend in the motion picture industry, for the last 100 years. Like, we've gone from huge cameras to very small cameras.
Spoiled.
We have cameras now that are doing more and are way less than 1,000 feet of Super 35 film. Like, that to me is still insane.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question about it. I mean, we're really spoiled. All of us are just spoiled with.
So what's the big advantages to the larger one? What's like some of the bigger?
There's a lot more, control and fine tuning of everything in image optically. It's a little bit. I'm really the wrong person to ask for EVF because I'm not an EVF guy. But again, it's kind of baked off of the Astro. So if you've used the Astro, and Michael's just made a post, then you'll kind of understand what it is. The problem is that the team has improved the DSMC2/DSMC3 EVF so much that spread is very small. It's much smaller than it was if you just were thinking about what you remember the DSMC2 EVF to look like on a camera, with the crappy black levels, versus the Astro. So it's I don't think you're helping me answer the question.
But I think you actually have the right viewpoint to answer, and that is you're not an EVF shooter. So which one of those two would you rather use? Which one makes you want to use an EVF? Neither.
The little one for me personally, of course, absolutely. But what your question actually leads into, our monitoring, for DSMC3 has been a bit of a roller coaster ride, but it kind of leads into the display discussion, which I want to have in a second. But I haven't heard Carlos's vote for.
Yeah, speak up, Carlos.
Big one or little, or expensive one or big one or little one?
So I think if I was using an EVF more often than I need an EVF, because at this point I would probably use it, if I had an EVF right now to use, I would use it twice a month. So I'm not sure that that's enough for me to spend $12,000 on it. I used to like the DSMC2 EVF. So, and that's what I remember. And that was actually the better EVF that I've ever used, because I was not as big of a fan of the Zacuto, whatever Zacuto called, the one that was kind of chunky and not the round one, but the bigger one. I wasn't,
the one before the Pro.
Yeah, I wasn't super thrilled with that one. So, I mean, for me, the EVF is one of those things that if it's in my bag, it's like a safety net in case I'm getting myself into something that I didn't realize was not going to be good enough on my monitor. So I think that the $5,000 price point for me is better than 12.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I mean, I think we came out with the right one first. I think if we came out with, because we have to kind of pick which one to do first. If we came out with the very expensive one first, it probably would have been a better business decision, but I think it was I think that would have been the wrong way around, especially the fact
the shock of it would have been a lot.
Yeah, the shock of it, and all of especially the Komodo guys looking at that and being like, wait, you $12,000 for the EVF? Have you lost your mind? Because,
yes, we have.
This stuff is expensive. So that's good. I'm still undecided, and the team is trying to figure it out which way to
go small.
My opinion on EVFs.
You'll move more
Yeah.
units, and it'll suit more of a variety. It's the same thing. You can always make a small camera bigger. You can't always make a big camera smaller. And for those of us who have literally chopped into metal on cameras, you don't even want to do that with electronic stuff too often.
Yeah.
I think there's XL people who would appreciate the smaller one as well as the big one. But I think in terms of the smaller cameras, which I think there are more of on the market based off of my own experience, I think the smaller one is more suitable for those cameras by quite a bit. Just weight and center of gravity, getting offset and stuff like that. So,
I mean, I'm with Phil on the small and light and compact and being able to use it. But in my view, if the image to my eye, if I put up there, if it's tiny, I'm not interested in any way. So if the small one is small in the eye, where your eye relief is really small, then I wouldn't be interested. But if it's big, then it's an easy win because it's tiny already.
Have the optics changed on the new one, the new DSMC small one?
So that's a good question. I don't know if I'm supposed to answer that yet or not. There is.
It's just us. There's no one on here.
There's somebody very good at optics making, because this one, the optics come off, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knew that. Somebody right now is making an upgraded pro version of this. I don't think I can say who that is right now. But that even spread, and it's probably going to be expensive, but that kind of narrows that gap even more.
Yeah, but not up to $12,000.
It changes.
No, not.
You don't know who's making it though.
No.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but somebody
it's
that's
an
very
Aries
good
Supreme. It's a.
I've been kind of referring to. I have a small core group of filmmakers who I refer to are the EVF club. Like they always talk to me, when DSMC3 happened, they're like, where's the EVF? Just like when DSMC2 happened, like, where's the EVF? It's the same thing over and over again. And it's kind of funny, the late, great Mark Toya and I would occasionally have these really long, sometimes hours-long conversations about how we like to shoot. And that thing that we were doing with Monster, where we had the EVF and the touch on top, has been something that a lot of people have kind of been falling in love with. But I think the timing right now is kind of special, because the thing I pointed out to a few people is you can get the EVF in the small HD Ultra 7, which is just happening, which is right now, I think, the best 7-inch auxiliary display or field display that is a separate thing. You can also connect that camera control to your Raptor or Komodo X, and that works. So you get the best of both worlds in that situation.
Yeah, it's fun, because Phil didn't know about this camera either before we announced.
No.
And I made sure he was home with the lure of, I got to send you both EVFs to kind of try.
I saw the weight on that package and I was like, that's really heavy EVF.
That's what Phil thought he was getting this week.
You got the extra.
Because he is the king of the EVF club. But I seriously, honestly, I still got to send you the EVFs so you can test them. But I think I'm really interested in your thoughts on what that spread is, because internally we just don't know, if that extra, somebody just said, I think that extra 10% of greatness is worth 3 times the price.
Right.
Yeah. Well, if you have more control over the image through the camera itself on that smaller EVF, that's solving a lot of issues. And, it's funny because I go way back. I remember the original EVF, which was very milky. It was very low contrast. And the first thing that happened when the OLED first launched was a lot of people were like, I miss seeing into the shadows, because they could see stuff down there just by having the elevated shadows. And then very quickly over time, some people are like, oh, I want the shadows even darker on the OLED. And I was like, this is such a weird arc of how this is, changing with DPs. But I think it's talking to people who are really making image decisions based off the monitor rather than the scopes, essentially, if you catch my drift. So, and, just to kind of give some perspective over long-term, what Red did really amazingly here, by integrating a really large touch screen and also having EVF support, And now having control accessible on the side or the top of the camera, you have so much access, and including things like red control, to get into your camera, to control things and make your own choices on how you want to operate. You can quite literally shoot with nothing on the camera and a cell phone right now. That's insane. Wired or wireless. And that's fun if you need to do that. I've done that where we've rigged cameras on cars and stuff, and you don't want your monitor to fly off or anything like that. So any safety risk you can avoid. And it's really cool because these are all sort of cubic now. You can rig them just rigid as heck. I mean, before we'd sometimes leave like a 5-inch monitor on and just kind of live with that thing there.
Yeah. Yeah. True. True.
You're never retired,
Bob.
Retired.
You're on vacation. You're on vacation, Bob.
Everybody's retired. I mean,
Sutton puts out a super sticker, and I feel like, have you seen Mutiny? I don't know. It's like a little call to action.
Oh, that's how you get people to talk about you.
I guess so. I don't know, it kind of worked. I immediately smiled. So can you talk about, like Campbell Letton's asking and several different questions, all similar type, the limitations, what you can and can't do as far as EVF, monitor, et cetera, and can you have both? How would you do it? That kind of thing.
Well, so there's a lot of questions. You can't plug two monitors into the chocolate. I call it the chocolate bar, the little adapter thing on the top of the camera. So you got to choose either one. Obviously, if you're using the EVF, you're probably going to use the SDI port to drive LCD if you want to. For now, LCD is. I'm sure people are asking about the little LCD, and so that's kind of the limitations. The other limitation is, and a lot of people I'm sure ask too, is can the old, and I wish they could, but they can't, the old LCDs work with the new chocolate bar? They can't because they're different resolutions and they can't drive them. They were really a weird Frankenstein, those old monitors.
Oh.
So it's really kind of, the EVF luckily was the right resolution to work moving forward. And a new LCD will have to come, which we're not at yet. And I think people, I don't know if people even care about it anymore. But the LCD game is changing dramatically. I don't know if anybody saw the OnePlus 12 phone right now. It's got an AMOLED with, they say 4,000 pits or nits peak brightness, which isn't really accurate, but it's absolutely stunningly incredible. And so we're kind of waiting for that to happen because we have to follow the cell phone screen. We can't, as a company, a small company selling, thousands instead of millions of displays. We're not going to go down that path anymore of making a custom actual display.
Well, there's a benefit to that because that's where all the technology is advancing so
rapidly.
Right?
Yeah.
And they throw the money at it, and the display will be available.
And I've been lucky enough to go to BOE and Foxconn and Samsung and visit all these factories, and it's really expensive to make your own screen, even to change a little something. So we're kind of, for the newish LCD, new LCD, we just got to wait a little bit while because that whole AMOLED just changed, because AMOLED was the big problem, was always brightness outside. There's a couple other problems, but that was the main one, kind of keeping you away from using OLEDs. And that just kind of flipped the switch. So that's a good indicator if you look at that OnePlus 12. And to me, that's the perfect complementary size on the Komodo X and the DSM series. Probably a little bit bigger than most people are expecting.
So closer to like a 6 or something.
Yeah. It's pretty much a 6-inch.
Just make sure you put shortcut keys on the side then if you're going to keep the bezels narrow.
We still have to
Soft keys,
repackage it, and even repackaging that screen and making those buttons and the board that has to control it, it's still expensive. So people can't expect these screens to be, $400.
The same,
It's not going to happen, but it's just going to take time, which is why we're kind of dancing around this. Small HD, of course, works with it. I don't know if I can talk about the Bluetooth in the camera.
Oh, interesting. Let's write that down.
Sounds like you just did.
News to me.
I've got a little Lauren is, and I think Lauren's actually on here. Lauren and Jeff kind of
like, don't talk about this, and just
my slap in the face. I think they're putting these. This is where the balloons come from. They just cover me with balloons when I say something.
Lauren's like, no,
and they just start beating on your stop.
So I kind of, if you see me looking over here, it's looking for Lauren saying, no.
Lauren says howdy. He didn't say anything other than that at the moment.
But
I don't know if that's like howdy, like the law guy walks into the saloon. I think just always ain't good.
I'm turning on my Bluetooth
we're like,
to see
how
what I can
do
find.
keep doing this?
But I saw the question somewhere came by. Is like, why is Wi-Fi? Of course, Wi-Fi.
Why is Chinese able to
Wi-Fi control work? We do have Bluetooth in the camera. We just haven't turned it on, and that's I don't know.
Without
you're saying there's a
too deep
chance
there,
but that gives a little bit more options for control without having to use the chocolate bar.
Are we on a new enough Bluetooth standard that we also?
Yeah, I was going to say, don't worry about Lauren, but what version of Bluetooth is?
I'm not.
No, you don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me the specifics. I just want to know if we get control and monitoring through Bluetooth or
right. How much bandwidth?
No. It'll be
just control.
Yeah, just okay. But you have Wi-Fi too. So this is why we chose Wi-Fi first, because you obviously get the bandwidth. To both of those things, there's just a lot of other bad things that go with Wi-Fi instead of Bluetooth. So
the reason why I asked that question is the people who do wireless monitoring on set, Bluetooth is a little bit easier to jump into a camera and out of a camera to do remote triggering and stuff.
It does, and it also, the Bluetooth is actually kind of more, it's great for control, but it's also more important for things like lens adapters, smart lens adapters, smart filters. You've probably seen some of these maybe around, maybe you haven't, maybe that's not public yet, but there's
writing that down.
People doing really cool things with Bluetooth enabled camera filters or lens adapter lenses, and all sorts of accessories that all kind of talk together, so that we kind of put that in the camera. It's not enabled yet, and God knows it's not very high on the list, but that's going to open it up for in the future for a little bit more accessibilities over control.
Is Bluetooth, I mean, unofficially, is it only in VRaptor-X, or is it in some other bodies as well?
No, it goes back a couple cameras.
Nice.
Oh, hi. Yeah. Question here based on Dan's. Could we see like a red app for a on-screen EVF for Apple Vision? Is that something that's possible?
I'm not allowed to talk about Apple Vision.
Just do this. Okay.
I think Apple Vision is incredible, but I've had to sign my life away to enter a spaceship. So
copy that. So you can't.
That's the one thing I can't. I can overshare my stuff because I'm the only one. Nobody can yell at me except for Lauren. But
I guess we jumped off of VRaptor-X, but something I really should mention that's more on the more technical concern side of things that I think is, it's obviously not something that's in the sales pitch of the camera, but there is a new optical pathway in that camera in an entirely new sensor design and hardware driving it. I have a torture light that features a LED with a magnifying element with another magnifying element. And every camera, not just Red cameras, other cameras that use sensors that might evoke an optical artifact revealing some seam or something like that. I have not been able to do that on RaptorX.
Yeah.
So that's gone.
Yeah, the optical on the Raptor X, you know, we're making a big deal about the sensor, of course, and the boards inside that are upgraded and the audio. That whole sensor cavity, that optical path has been improved as well.
Yeah, and
visually, you can look at both of them and see.
What I was kind of grilling you on this morning when I was slapping you with those messages to see if there was a new filter or whatever, or maybe it's just the change of the whole thing. I don't know. But I have lenses, and you know that I'm a big lens nut and lens character and lens flare and all those things. This is reading a truer lens flare straight off of lenses than anything else. Raptor already had huge increases over DSMC2 with the new color science filter, or /OLPF, however people want to call it, whatever that is. All of the filters going on. This one is sick. Like I have a funky wide lens that's just got a beautiful weird flare. And it's funny because I've been talking to Marcus about his app and stuff, and flares have been on my mind a little bit, even though it's not something I shoot every day of the week. But testing it last night, I was like, this is awesome. This looks fantastic. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, it's a good point, Phil. Thanks for bringing that up. And, you know, a lot of people, I think people kind of understand it, but they don't remember that there's glass in front of the sensor and there's a glass in between the sensor and the lens. So your lens and that glass kind of become the optical path. It's not just your lens. So you're kind of compounding everything as it goes and actually hits the sensor. So it's pretty hard to get that right with the million different flavors of lens and characteristics of lens and flares of lens. It can look, I mean, you've seen it. It's taken us a long time to get here, but you can, as Phil's probably better than anybody to see it, one lens might look fantastic, but with a little bit different of a lens, with a, you know, a little bit different telecentricity, it can break everything because the lens is fine, sensor's fine, but you put in, you know, reflections and pieces of glass in between those two, it can just do some weird, wacky stuff. And for some reason, Phil decided to make this goddamn light that just, you know, breaks everything.
It was actually completely bad.
So look how good is that. And I remember sending that to the engineers the first time I saw that flashlight, super, I don't know, your death ray light. And they're like, what the hell is he doing? And, you know, an engineering reaction is nobody would ever in this world shoot anything like that. So it doesn't matter, but it does.
Here comes J.J. Abrams. Jared, could you, I mean, you don't have to go detail, but like just kind of an idea, where or how long have these sensors been worked on? So you started with OG, then Komodo X, and then you've got now Raptor X. Were they all being developed kind of at the same time, or did they stair step off each other?
Well, you've got to, you know, because this is kind of a bad example because you have rolling shutter and global shutter, and they're so different. A lot of that work has to go on the color science and Graham's side. So that's a really long kind of path as the sensor team is fine tuning everything. But, you know, I've been shooting the Raptor X probably for about 6 or 7 months here, maybe. So before that, you also, you know, you have test sensors. So you have test wafers, and the engineers kind of do, there's no color filters, and they do their thing. So it's a pretty long process before I actually get it. And then, you know, we kind of stomp on it. Graham shoots all of his charts. Lauren tries to break it. Clay goes out and shoots a bunch of stuff. And we do a bunch of internal stuff, you know, to try to see what we can find, you know, obviously that's part of testing. And then the next phase is obviously going out to all you guys, and all the software stuff can finish up when most people, you know, most of you, all you guys on, a lot of you guys on here give that feedback and stuff that we just can't even replicate, shooting over here. That's the beauty of, owning that entire chain of the sensor, the boards and the cameras, everything. Is we can change things as we find it without, if we bought a sensor from Sony, for example, you kind of buy that sensor, which is already a year old by the time it opens up to third parties, and then you're kind of stuck with whatever they do.
Yeah. No, I think we're all pretty grounded that there's a lot of, a
lot of work,
staggered work in terms of bringing something like this to market.
Yeah, just a brief round of applause for everybody at Red who's literally broke the mold on this. It's not been done ever. Yeah, where's your balloons?
I'm thrilled with the engineers. I've run into some of those folks at trade shows and stuff, and I know a lot of them are actually pretty passionate about what they do, even though they're more or less lurking in the shadows.
Yeah, no, there's no question that that's where the talent lies at this company, is the combination of engineers. It's the weirdest group of people you'll ever meet. Most of everybody at Red, myself included, just a bunch of weirdos. But the way that everybody works together, I was talking to Graham about this yesterday. Lauren as an example, and Lauren came from Red Rock Micro. I mean, that's the first time I remember seeing him. And you guys probably are too young to even know what Red Rock Micro was.
No. I still have a box down here.
And then he went to Canon, and then we got him from Canon, and he's just a smart guy. And I argue with him every single day. He challenges me, and he's way smarter than me, but I've got some practical knowledge, I guess. But him and Graham together, then that's a whole nother level, because with Graham, you just don't argue with the guy. Like, you just don't. Even if he's wrong, he'll
where's my shirt? Where's my shirt?
Yeah.
Graham's been a real treat, because I can bounce my color stuff off of him. And we have some interesting thoughts that overlap, but sometimes, I'm still a little bit filmmakery outside of the technical stuff. Yeah. So, like even my newest output transform, I know I'm doing things differently than he would.
Yep.
But it looks damn good.
And those discussions are exactly, and that's the combination, though, is when all these engineers get together with, Jeff's team and the product team, and then, out to the marketing guys, because most of the marketing guys actually shoot as well. Jeff shoots, of course, as well. Everybody kind of shoots at Red, but it's getting all of those ideas together and then kind of picking which way to go. It's really great to see a bunch of misfits kind of come together in the way it does to create some. I mean, this global shutter stuff, it's no joke. Like, it's no joke how good this sensor is. I don't. People are like, it's not 17 stops, it's 16 stops, or what? It's all blah 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 blah. The fact that
the head turning day was Komodo. Prior to Komodo, I think the next global shutter that was even near it was like 5 or 6 stops less dynamic range.
Wasn't that like the original Alev, the original Alexa?
Even the cameras, the full frame global sensor cameras that have been announced but not shipped yet, there's still a big discrepancy from the rolling sensor 2 years ago in dynamic range. So that just in its fact is just a miracle that these engineers, one of our sensor guys is actually a filmmaker. Like, he's in India making actual
He's the ultimate nerd.
It blows my mind that, this guy's like directing films and making sensors. It's insane. But, these guys are passionate about what they do, but making huge technological advancements that when you're in the group of misfits, you kind of lose sense of that. You're just like, oh, why can't we have the same dynamic range as the rolling shutter? And then, it seems like a obvious thing. Let's go on it. Oh, Lauren's yelling at. Oh God, Lauren's here.
Andrew's complaining about the old.
No, it's an Andrew
accessories.
He's come to ruin all of our. What's he upset facing about?
No, he's been there for a while. He just said howdy earlier. Nothing big. No, okay, he was at Andrew Red.
Right. Yeah. As long as he's not yelling at me. He hasn't yelled at me yet, so that's okay.
I guess one thing to note, like where we are in the timeline now.
That's for you, Jared. Everything you're doing is perfect for Lauren.
Good. Yeah, balloon. My balloons.
Anytime you leak something, I'm just going to put that comment up, and you're fine. You don't worry.
I guess one thing to mention where we are now in this timeline where we have this highlight extension where we're getting 20 plus stops, for me, that's what today is. And I'm excited about what this is doing. But now it makes me really imagine where we're going to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years. Because, I've done some perceptual research and I've kind of put a stake in the ground that somewhere between 21 and 26 stops is a really good sensor, like for motion picture applications. I did a bunch of R&D in the 2000s on this front, and I still stand by it. And this just alludes to the power that this trend could be doing. And unfortunately, I understand the linear gamma and things, so there are some major data things that need to transpire to really go really further, but I hope this is a thing that drives forward in the future is kind of what I'm trying to emphasize.
I think 25 stops is more than just a good sensor. I mean,
I'm talking about how our eyes
it's just named God.
The world kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the God sensor. And you're probably not, I know 21 has come up in discussion a lot. 21 is a really, what do we do next kind of thing. But I think a really good sensor kind of happened at that 13, 14 stops.
Oh yeah.
When you had to stop thinking so much about it, I think that's when it became really good.
Yeah,
the 35 stops, NASA's going to buy everything so they can look at the sun and see the planets in front of it.
I'm sure Jared has a whole different perspective on this because I know back when Red User was my stomping ground for some of my test results when I had to compare motion picture film to digital, all digital at the time. When we got to 13 and 15 stops, that was when the conversation wasn't so much about is digital good enough? It's now like, what can digital do?
Yeah.
And we've moved well beyond that. Like, it's a joy now where we are. I mean, I think people have to identify that we are kind of an amazing time right now. Whether your camera's 6K, 8K, whatever, like you got a lot of dynamic range, you got a global shutter, you got weird features in the camera. The other thing I'll say about extended highlights, having the time-lapse mode, getting that extra latitude, you got the sun rolling through frame. It's going to be great. And Jared knows from my previous time-lapse work, the cool thing about doing time-lapse with a digital cinema camera is you get a file that can go straight to post. You're not sitting on some computer converting camera raw files into some 16-bit thing or trying to convert them into some raw file format that's compatible with whatever NLE or editing suite. You just get an R3D. That's just boom.
What is the slowest shutter on the X, the VRaptor-X?
I can't answer that question because I'm on such a different camera.
I know what it is
Phil,
today.
Phil answer the question.
What is it today, Phil? But I like where you're going, Jared. Let me put up Lauren's comment real quick.
Yeah. It's currently 1/6 of a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
Lauren, sorry, 15.99. Sorry.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you.
Nope, Lauren, sorry, you don't get any other comments but the smiley face. That way Jared will keep talking.
There's Lauren for you. He's not going to give you the 6.
In my world,
when does the dynamic need
after
to push?
Komodo X, I never needed more dynamic range. And I think that with the whole virtual production piece, that's probably where the extra dynamic range is going to come in really handy for the stuff that I shoot. But because in like real world things, everything that I shot in the last probably 24 months, the Komodo dynamic range was way more than what I needed. It was just solid.
Yeah, that's the beauty of, you're right, and that's the beauty of this extended kind of extra is you're not doing this because you need to bring in an entire frame of exposure. This is just picking off the little tiny bits that are, 2 or 3 stops over, which you normally would just have to ignore. And, and Soderbergh is the one guy, because I can't remember what movie it was we were shooting. It was like Haywire or something. And we were in a cafe, and he was just, he exposed for the actors inside the cafe, sitting at a table, and the back windows were completely blown out. And I was like, dude, you got to protect the highlights, you got to fix the wind. And he looks at me and he's like, I don't have to do anything. You need to fix your camera. And that's when I was like, you son of a, you're right. But, F you. But yeah, you're right. And that's when we were at, I think, 12 or 13 stops during that. I can't even remember which camera it was. It was one of the first I think. And it was like, holy crap, he's right. There's people that, just don't care. And especially on big productions, one person that might not care, might not, somebody else might actually care. So you have second unit or third unit or blah, 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 to have a little tiny window blow out because you're trying to get the shadows. Picking the shadows might be the right decision. To have this little extra on top where you're like, hey, we can capture it all. This is where it gets to, I think, Phil's 21 stops of range. You don't need the whole, you're not exposing for the brightest light. Yeah. You're just grabbing it because you can. And it's the little pieces. That's kind of what, we want people to think of the extended highlights as. We don't want people to say, oh my God, 20 stops. So now I'm going to light half the frame, minus right. 10, and half the frame, plus 10.
But you could.
Yeah.
No, you
almost
shouldn't.
You almost sounded Texan in there a minute when you said exposing.
One of the interesting conversations I had yesterday, and this is what I think is kind of really relevant here. There are filmmakers in the world where 17 stops is plenty for what they're doing if they're on lit sets or even outdoors, if they know how to expose well, whether they have a lighting package or using like a quarter grid or something to just knock things down. It works extremely well. And the highlight extension may not ever step into that world. But, for me, I'm exploring it as what can this do and what can this do for me? And one of the more abstract quantities that I thought about was if you go outside right now with an ND2 or 3, like a 0.9 on your camera, you knock it down and then you'd have to adjust your ISO up. This is essentially giving you the highlight retention of ISO 6400 and a bit higher, actually, with the noise profile of 800.
Yeah.
If you think about it that way.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
So, and that's why I know I'm getting into some weird space.
Yeah.
And then I pointed out what it means for HDR.
Don't listen to this guy.
Yeah.
A quick question for you, Phil, and then I want to get to this awesome question here.
Clever,
is the highlight is the highlight extension something you might consider using in your helicopter, or is it something you don't necessarily need just because of where you're filming, or are you?
No, it's absolutely something I would use, but I think, a lot of my testing has been experimenting. How fast can I have movement in the frame? And me being the lunatic I am timing that. And so I know I come from a practical film cinematography background, so I know the optimal panning speeds for different format sizes. I even made a tool. Red's got a tool. Everyone's got a tool. Now there are times where you can abide by those rules, and there's times where you can break those rules. But once I have the rule set for what extended highlights allows me to do in a very common situation you have in a helicopter is you're flying somewhere and you got a big burning ball of fire in the sky somewhere. And I take a great deal of pride in doing like my weird like wizard magic where I'm like, we're shooting in some desert and I know the dust on the horizon gives us about a 4-stop correction on ND. So that's where we want to get that shot. But the second that sun's any higher, there isn't a camera on Earth that's going to work with that. So it's that sort of situation where I'm like, okay, now I can flip that on and maybe solve that problem and have color in the sun, not just a white ball.
Yep.
Right.
And you saw some of the examples that the team shot with the sun, the cityscape, and the sun. All of a sudden, it kind of this perfect example. It's just a little bit that normally is just a big white ball of nuclear fire, and all of a sudden it comes into something that looks pretty, and you're like, okay, this is a good use for this.
Yeah, and so, I mean, we don't talk about it, but when you clip that badly, pretty much on anything, you get color distortions up there.
Yeah.
And this is way protecting it. I mean, most of the time when people will toggle this on, and maybe we should talk about getting that as a shortcut key in the menu, by the way, so you can put it on the monitor.
Yeah.
When you turn it on, I think the most interesting thing is most times anything I had clipped was just exposed.
Yeah.
Whether it was a window on a static locked off shot or whatever I was testing, it was just, oh, there it is.
There's something on your face blowing out right now, Phil. You got a
little well, the sun's about to pop into him too.
Oh, this. Oh, yeah. We got the sun kind of. Oh, yeah. So, there it is.
It's kind of funny. This question to most people from the outside world would say, "Well, this is the wrong group to ask. You got two guys that have the Raptor X and the guy that wants to sell it to you." But actually, this group of people is exactly who you want to ask. What would be a reason you would not want to go to a Raptor X upgrade from Raptor?
I will know a very detailed answer by tomorrow morning. I'm doing all of my extremely nerdy chart stuff tonight, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be 4 to 6 hours of the most boring tests that anyone's ever done, but it will be the A/B between regular Raptor and VRaptor-X. And, you know, for me, if this is a win-win, I'm quite taken by the VistaVision format size or the digital VistaVision equivalent that Red's come up with. Because it kind of harkens back to the way film VistaVision was, where you had a slightly wider negative, and a lot of people have really stuck with like the 36 by 24 or 36 by slightly shorter. We got a 40.96 with sensor, which, not getting weird into theory crafting, but there's an optimal sensor size to give you human field of view and stuff like that, and image playing with your eyes. And we're getting kind of close to some really good stuff here. And there's some people who think that stuff's meaningful or not, you know, but the physics behind it is all really hardcore science, and it makes a lot of sense. So I've been into the sensor. So for me, the real question is, if Raptor X is as good or very, very close in most ways, it's a camera that I just switched to my A camera. If I find noticeable things that regular Raptor can do just a little bit better, you know, but I will say by doing my quick and dirty stuff, just the quick side-by-sides yesterday, without doing any of the actual measurement stuff I'm doing tonight, they're so close, like really dangerously close. So if you're shooting virtual production, if you're shooting action, this is a no-brainer. This camera, 120 frames per second global shutter, get rid of the extended highlight conversation. That's not even part of the equation. If you're chasing buggies across the desert and you got that type of action going on, that's the whole thing.
And there's value to the audio upgrade too. I'm just going to point that out.
Yep.
Carlos, I'm interested in your thoughts as to why you would not necessarily want to update.
You know, the only real reason that I could come up with as I'm thinking about it would be if I couldn't afford it, because unless a user's literally going to only ever park the camera on sticks and use it as a webcam, everything about having the global shutter just makes it better. Motion looks better, tracking looks better, handheld looks better.
Stabilizing in post, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like everything about a global shutter for me in the different types of scenarios that I find myself in, it just makes more sense.
Yeah, it's
Jared?
and it's probably not the answer I should give, but you really don't need this camera. And if we were all here a week ago, we would have said, "Oh my God, the Raptor is so great! It's the greatest camera ever!" Blah 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 blah. Because nobody knew that this camera was out there. We kind of always forget how good we have it.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't. I mean, the worst thing I like to see as a customer is people upgrade because they think they're missing out, or because everybody else is doing it, or they think they need this to be a better filmmaker. Blah 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 blah. And that's not the right reason. There's a bunch of reasons why the Raptor X is a better camera, the best camera we've made. And there's a bunch of, they're listed on the things that it does better. Again, if this was a traditional situation where you're deciding just between global shutter, and you're like, okay, it's 3 stops or 4 stops or 5 stops difference, that's an easier, why do I not upgrade? But if you looked, and I was just talking to Nate about this, I think yesterday, she just watched Girl with the Dragon Tattoo again. And you look at that film and how gorgeous it was. It's a red one. And if David Fincher went out and Jeff Cronenworth went out and shot Girl with the Dragon Tattoo today on the red one and sent it out to the theater, we all would be, oh my God, that's beautiful. It's gorgeous. This is an incredible image. Have a nice day. That's the reality of the situation, is you can take great images with a Red One OG camera, and everybody, and especially the audience, they won't know and they won't care, and they'll be like, oh my God, this is a gorgeous picture. Now you fast forward, and all the things that all of us get excited about, because that's our jobs, and I'm not talking about Red, I'm talking about actually as a shooter, it's our jobs. There's a lot of technology since the Red One that makes our lives better and
easier too,
and easier and
faster, efficient,
faster. And then you put dynamic range and frame rates and resolution and all of these things. And I mean, I have a Red One that I pick up sometimes, and it's heavy and it's big, and oh my God, it takes 100 watts of power. You forget, okay, we're spoiled now. But from the baseline, you don't need anything. I mean, you can go and shoot a film with your phone now, so it doesn't really matter. But you don't have to have this camera. You don't have to do this upgrade. If you see the value in it, if you see these things that you can monetize if you're a professional and make your life easier, then of course. And if you can afford it, that was a good answer, by the way, Carlos. If you can afford it, then
it's a fair statement. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? Or if you have you're just about to upgrade to a Raptor, and you this has been in your schedule for upgrade. Say you have a Gemini, or if you have something and you're like, okay, it's time to upgrade, and this comes along, then it's a good idea. But if you it's kind of why we brought the upgrade program back. The Raptor is just so good that if you have a Raptor, to buy a RaptorX is a little bit crazy. To upgrade, it's a little bit more excusable. But I wouldn't, if I had a Raptor and I saw this RaptorX, I don't know if I'd have to say, oh, I must have this camera. It's so much better.
Unless there's immediate ramifications. Like, it's been interesting talking to people. The second my face shows up on Instagram with this thing, it's really interesting who reaches out to me. Some people I haven't spoken to in like a year. And, some of those people are people who do shoot things that benefit from having a global shutter. That alone, that feature alone is enough to sell people that camera, no matter the cost. But yeah, I would say, I mean, you've seen some of the stuff I've done with the original Raptor VV, and it's stunning, dude. I mean, like, it makes me emotional thinking about what I'm able to achieve with that camera. Because I shoot stuff that's hard. Like, we're shooting unwrangled sometimes, low lights, bright sun, into silhouette. I want to see the backside of these rocks with detail in them. I don't want them to be black. So I genuinely agree with that. But as with how our industry moves so fast in technology, certainly in the X, there are solutions in here that really help out a lot of modern workflows.
If you're shooting virtual production, then it's kind of a no-brainer, because this is like virtual. That's a different. Now I'm wearing the red hat, but it is virtual production. And I mean, having a Komodo was pretty awesome, because you've got there's a lot of people that have got a lot of virtual production jobs owning a Komodo. Trust me, this Raptor-X with all of the virtual production stuff in it, if you're in that world, it's a no-brainer. Even if you have a Raptor, OG Raptor, the Raptor-X is probably a really good idea.
Yeah,
just for that reason alone.
I don't mind spilling the beans on one call I had just before I got on here. The Olympics are coming to California in 4 years. And somebody called me about this camera for something happening 4 years from now. So, and that pertains to tracking moving objects from a fair distance. You don't want to be close to athletes and things like that, because we've all seen one clip of a guy on a Steadicam tripping a runner and never to happen again kind of thing. So, but yeah, I think that's where we are. And I'll say this, I'm a little bit more on the Nolan side, where I like the larger format for the image quality gains, the resolution, the detail. There is something about different format sizes. I know there's a lot of conversation, but when you come to working distances and immersive visuals, there's a lot of theory crafting, as well as stuff that when you're in a screening room or even on a big TV, you're going, that looks a little bit different than this. Why does this movie on Super 16 feel better than this one on Super 35, or vice versa? And once you get into that weird headspace, it gets really exciting from a creative point of view. So,
Jared, this question is more of a brief question. I know you don't like to talk about what Red does or does not, but like this, is Red ever considering like making a super small, compact version of a camera? I mean, the Komodo is very small, but like something smaller. Is that an area y'all are thinking about, or you can't say, or
that? No. The answer, I mean, like cell phone kind of world.
Probably no. You said like FX3, so just like a small like. People probably want, what the Red special sauce in a handheld camera, like a smaller mirrorless size.
Yeah, we probably won't do that. That doesn't say that somebody we work with, we've got a lot of friends, and more friends, it seems, every month in this world, in the manufacturing world. I wouldn't rule that out, but it's not, especially smaller camera, smaller sensor. We have no desire.
Right. Yeah, there's no fun for smaller sensor, but that was a fun answer though, Jared. Thank you for
bigger
that.
Sensor.
Can I slap some perspective in that? And this is just my hot take, and Jared definitely knows my opinion on this because I've voiced this one. The problem with a lot of the smaller cameras is when you actually have to physically rig up for a production day, whether you're shooting 4 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours. It's amazing. I have an R5C filming me right now, and this is as lightweight as I can make it. But if I had to use this thing to make this a shooting package, it would be heavier than a Komodo X. Mm-hmm. In a Komodo X, I can put a big boy battery on, and I can run for a good amount of time, and we're not stopping production while I'm swapping batteries all the time. It has a thorough feature set that allows me to do all sorts of cool things like SDI and stuff on set, just the basics. And there's this other thing we don't really talk about it's amazing to have these lightweight gimbals to put mirrorless cameras on. That's great. Use those tools for what that is. But when it comes to the majority of filmmaking for the most people on Earth, you do want a camera with a little bit of weight. We don't know where that tipping point is, but I feel like with Komodo and Komodo X, we're kind of right in that danger zone, where if the camera is much lighter, it's going to move on even a sturdy tripod or a somewhat lightweight tripod, I should say. So these are just my personal takes, but I have cameras that are incredibly lightweight that are frustrating as heck to use if I have to do anything serious with them. And then I've worked with the complete opposite end with 150-pound IMAX rigs, where we're not going to be shooting some home videos with that thing. It's just not going to happen. We'll try to make a cool scene with a kid running around, but our backs are going to be sore.
There's definitely too big and there's definitely too small. I mean, even it was pretty incredible that last iPhone event, and they're like, oh, this whole thing was shot on the iPhone, and it looked really good, and you're like, holy crap. And then you look at their rig, and it was like they were shooting an ARRI 65 with, the thing was bigger than you could ever make a Raptor XL. The size of this rig, I think they had to use the Super Pee-wee dolly for this thing because the glass and the matte box and all the crap. And we've seen that. We've seen people try to take mirrorless cameras, even on the Komodo, the original Komodo, when you tried to make that into, back then it was a DSM-C2 camera. You're like, look at the weapon and then look at the Komodo, and then you build the Komodo up to act like your A camera weapon. It's bigger than the weapon was.
Yep.
So you kind of it kind of screws you with your brain. That said, it's really nice to have something small rather than something just always too big. The red one was smallest camera at the time. People looked at that camera when we were releasing, they're like, there's no way that this is possible, and it's too small and it's too light. Now for me, it's too big. The XL is a little bit too big for me personally. I'm like, I like the Raptor size. Thank you very much.
But it's pre-built,
Yeah. The XL, when you have a crew of 50 people and somebody else is carrying your camera for you, God bless you. I love it. XL is the perfect camera for you. But for me,
Phil,
small.
Phil could use a little extended highlights right now.
Well, he's on a Canon, so.
Pop your scrims in your window there, Phil.
I think I'm good. I think these leaves are doing a good little bit of...
Jared, any plans for a Super 35 version of Raptor X?
Michael asked me this last night, and I didn't answer him, so I'm not going to answer him again.
I was trying.
He's trying to publicly say me.
Well, we're overlooking something, Jared. Kind of, I mean, you mentioned it under your tongue in the same breath, but you were talking about. You mentioned larger sensors too, which I think has been something that's on the mind of some people. But I really will say one thing. I commend Red for supporting Super 35 and this VistaVision format. I do think there's room for probably a larger sensor. I don't think there's room for a crazy large sensor, like really stupid large.
No. It's glass. I mean, you have to think about glass always when you make it. It's why Brandon Washington, he's on here. I think I saw his name somewhere. Before I got on this morning, he was talking about, the sensor and how important it was for, there we go. Brandon's here. Yay. He was actually having a really good discussion on sensor size and if you look at the stuff that he shoots, there's a reason why we made that VistaVision 40 by 20, it's that wide aspect. And that if you think about a bigger sensor, there's an emotion tied to it that people try to argue S35 and full frame that, the depth of field is the same and you can match them and you can make them all kind of look the same. There's a different emotion. There is something with global shutter with full frame handheld. One of you, I don't know if it was Carlos or if it was you, Phil. Yeah, that was like, there's something different. There is something different with the size of the chip and the size of of the compression that's going on. But the reason we made it 40 by 20 was I was very conscious of the glass. I wanted it wider than full frame. I wanted it wider than the 36 by 24 because it's, to me, that 36-24 just wasn't a cinema format if you weren't shooting, especially if you weren't shooting anamorphic. So I wanted it to go as wide as possible, but still fit in a full frame piece of glass, most full frame piece of glass, and that's why we got that 40 wide. Because when you draw a circle, it just ironic. It was 4096 by 2160 millimeters because it just worked out that way. But if you go this is the problem that I have with making a larger format sensor, something really big, is the glass. It's going to be expensive. Big sensors are just way more expensive, but it's the glass that we have to, if we don't do it ourselves, we need somebody else to do it, and it's not easy.
I can say as probably the only person on this call that has solutions up to IMAX lenses next to me, literally.
Yeah.
I think there's some interesting answers there in however we get there, in what it ends up as being. There's going to be filmmakers who are just thirsty for that. So,
how many sets of those glass beside you, Phil, are there in the world, though?
How many what?
How many sets of those glass beside you are in the world, though?
I mean, less every day as I keep buying it all up. So
exactly. So
my master plan is coming to form here.
So when I make a huge sensor camera, where's everybody going? The people going to run?
Gotta go to Phil. Phil's like, you need one now. Now's the time.
Just whip out one of these big boys right here and just say, hey, let's go.
Wow.
Exactly. This is Phil's master plan. He wants to con me into making a big sensor just so he can be the only rental
funnel him in
the world.
Yeah. For a moment there, Phil was looking like one of the aliens on Cocoon. He was like all white.
Yeah.
I love it. Magic. As a Raptor owner, as a Raptor owner, how intensive is the upgrade process? That's actually pretty easy. You want to? Carlos, it was super easy, but
salt and pepper. You can answer that.
Yeah,
you already did. I think.
The upgrade process is super easy. You just send it in. 7-10 days later, they send it back, but you got to pay money.
Yeah. I would say
the front will be black, right?
2 to 4 days on shipping, depending on where you are. If you're stateside, if you're out of the country, I remember talking to some guy in Bolivia about how long it was going to take to upgrade his camera. I was like, the first thing we got to do is figure out how to get your camera to red. You're in the middle of freaking nowhere, buddy.
Technically, I mean, it's funny because even with Carlos, his poor camera, this has been a nightmare. It's the logistics, which is just crazy. I mean, his camera was on the way to Texas, and we had to intervene and get it over to where he's actually at. All these little logistics things. When actually the process of technically upgrading the camera, because the teams build cameras every day, it's not that hard for them to take the camera apart, put the new stuff in there, put it back up. That doesn't take very long. That happens in a few hours. But it's the testing that happens after that, and then the logistics of when your camera comes in and where it falls in the line and how it gets out and where that ends up being the most difficult part of everything.
And the FedEx weather challenges.
Exactly. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think, it's funny because you guys used to show even on the NAB show floor, like kind of how you were repairing cameras or upgrading camera. Oh yeah, it was the upgrade that time. That was what it was. Yeah. And I think there's a whole. We live in a very consumer society where I hand you money and I expect to receive bacon almost instantly. But in reality, there's a lot of things that are happening before that bacon exists. And again, those are a lot of unsung heroes. Manufacturing, QCing this stuff. Raptor's been very solid for me. In fact, all of the new cameras have been very solid for me. And I've shot them in every condition possible. So I appreciate whatever is going into that. But I'm not Jared. I don't have foxes peeing on my cameras or anything like that. So.
Hey, Sutton, I saw that too. It was
My
very
poor
timely.
team when I because I break cameras all the time when I'm testing them. My poor team when I send cameras back, it's like, oh, there's something smells bad on the camera.
You should have bottled it. Hi, Mikhail. Rockstar.
I won't
Any
show
plans
you
for a
the
V-Raptor-X monochrome?
Even on the EVF, I think you knew this. I was trying to get the Fox to use this EVF, it was this one on, the big arm and everything that it comes with. And the Fox came up so quick and grabbed the eye cup and stole it, took off with it. So that was I ended up like this. Never found this thing. The Fox is sleeping with it somewhere. Completely ruined my shot. I'm like, well, there goes. The Fox I know he's got some GDU lenses. He's got.
Oh no.
The Fox is like, this guy's so gullible. He just puts that red parts. I think
the Fox is starting a little rental house in Phil's backyard over there. I bet.
Which one of y'all's dressing up as a fox now? Come on, somebody's over there just like
exactly.
Kel wants to know if there's any plans for a V-Raptor-X monochrome.
If there's a reason for a way, monochrome is always just when there's a good reason for me to do it. I'll make a dozen of them and then sell some, to my friends. So there just needs to be a really good reason for that, which there now more and more is from a corporate, think like Meta kind of world outside of our world for those cameras. So it's kind of a good chance.
Hey, Justin. See you out there. See, that's Phil's natural glow. They're loving your face there, Phil.
I am actually making a really good commercial for the extended highlights right now.
Yes, you are. Yes. He is not using a Raptor X to shoot him right now.
No.
Yeah, for the record.
Disclaimer.
No, it's literally right behind me right now.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love this. You can actually see both versions of. Remember the chainsaw, buzzsaw?
Yeah, that I know some people cut their fingers on in weird situations.
I can't believe how dumb we were. I honestly can't. I mean, it's cool looking. It's super cool looking.
Yeah.
But oh my God, it's literally a chainsaw that cuts your fingers open. And here's a prototype of this is actually kind of interesting. That was the prototype for that piece.
One thing I really like that you've been doing on a few things is that sort of bolt with the sort of stick in any sort of slim object to tighten it more.
Yeah.
Those are nice.
Did that with Matt and GDU. We kind of figured that out with GDU when we were trying to find, and then the shape of that was kind of the red team is these kind of new mushroom thumb things.
Yeah,
apart from exactly instead of the kip levers, the product team, we spent a lot of time actually trying to figure out which way to go there, and it was actually a pretty heated discussion. What worked best, but it really until you get it all on the camera and you're trying, like these ones are great. These little quick release things. Yeah. Everybody remembers these things, but they're not like when your eye is on an EVF and you gotta like do this two-step thing because it runs into something. Johnny, I think, kind of won this argument, and I agreed with him. But you want to just be able to touch, feel, and unlock, lock. Don't have a nice day. So we actually spent a lot of time on that stuff, thinking about it. So
that's cool.
Hopefully it shows.
You had mentioned that the extended highlights requires the global shutter, but I always ask you, theoretically, what would happen if you applied that to a CMOS rolling shutter sensor?
Well, you see that in HDRX. It's what the problem with HDRX was. Yeah. It's why it kind of became useless unless you were shooting, tabletop or something. any kind of movement. You're not just fighting motion blur from the object yourself. You're fighting the read reset lines of a rolling shutter, which is why with global shutter, even though you still have motion blur, it's a much easier thing because you know this is coming from the object, not the actual sensor.
Yeah.
Is the Raptor weather sealed because of the Fox?
I'd like to say that there's a lot of things on, but this goes back a few cameras now, back to the Komodo and the Komodo X. Is the Foxes are a very important development cycle in our world now.
The real question I have is if Fincher's Raptor-X has anything that the XL and the regular size camera does not. That's, outside of like map box support and stuff like that, it seems.
So inside his Xeno, the new Xeno, are you talking about the new Xeno? Yeah,
I saw a picture of it, and word got around fast where that thing was being tested. That's the best I can say about that.
I know that. I didn't even, that's why I couldn't tell him.
Yeah, I know.
God bless him and Eric, of course. I was like, I got something, because we were working on the new Xeno, of course. And I'm like, I got something new. I can't tell you what it is until we shoot. And Fincher was like, what the fuck is it? What the fuck is it? What the fuck is it? Eric's just a cool dude. So he was like, sure, whatever. But inside that Xeno is normal Raptor-X, but obviously he's got wireless video, wireless timecode, wireless audio. That's all in there. So it's not normal, but it's normal to all of us.
Yeah.
We just usually put that on the outside. What we did with Xeno is we took all that stuff and put it inside. And that's why that camera is so big.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
But there's nothing special. Like he's not getting. And it was interesting because Eric didn't know what it was. When he was looking at the monitor, when we turned it on, he didn't know global shutter. He didn't know extended highlights. He didn't know any of this stuff. And he picked it. He's like, something, the highlights roll off so much differently on this. And he figured it out pretty by the nuances, by the feeling, completely subjective. It was interesting to watch that reaction. So it was kind of cool.
Nick, your question about the 5-inch monitor, he answered it earlier, but the basic summary is they're waiting on this paradigm shift that's happening in phone tech on screens, and once that kind of levels and they find the right one, that's where they're going to start looking at the 5-inch.
Yeah,
so not long.
Yeah, just because you see the phones coming out with the new screens now, unfortunately, it doesn't mean we have access to those. You've got to wait one cycle for, the rest of the world to kind of be able to get those sensors. And it's not just us, it's like small HD as well. And small, they're pretty good at allocating, the new stuff as well. So between the two of us, we're just kind of waiting to take that next step.
And like you said earlier, to keep costs down, they're not going to develop or have someone one-off a screen for them. They're going to start using the phone tech, the phone screens that are out there.
Yeah. It's
our upgrade paths. Yeah, are upgrade paths here to stay, or is
no?
I'll
say, it's interesting because I think it's really awesome. I promise, I'm not lying when I say this. The last time we did the upgrade program before this, we lost money off of every single one. It's just so expensive to do. It really is. Even if so when I see people, oh my God, $12,000 is a ripoff. You guys are ripping us off. I just shake my head because it's like, oh my God, if we break even, I'll be happy on this. The only reason we do this is for the customers. Zero. This is not a profit generating, revenue generating exercise. So when I look at, and yesterday, it's kind of awesome because yesterday there was a few people that kind of went sideways and they're all grumpy. And I'm like, oh, now I remember why we don't do this. Well, because it is emotional. The reason we do it is emotional. We do it because I want to bring the customers forward. It's a better idea. Of course, you can sell your camera, get a lot of money for it, then buy, but that takes time and blah, 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 blah. It's just a pain in the ass. I like the idea of just putting, sending your camera in when we can upgrade it and then sending it back and you pay some money for it. But, people don't understand that it's still expensive. And especially with the RaptorX, you're getting the boards and the sensor. So to stay, I doubt. I mean, it depends. It's too early to tell. It depends how smoothly this kind of all, rolls out. Our team's a lot better than it was before. Our team is so much. I mean, Tommy's kind of led a great ship down there in Irvine, and Aaron and Jeff and all the teams are working so well. Maybe there's not a bunch of drama, and it's not. But again, it's like Carlos was the first one, and his camera's on the way to Texas. And he doesn't live in Texas.
Well, on behalf of the level-headed Red owners out there, thank you for the little things, like every once in a while doing an upgrade when you can, because you care.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all appreciate
at this
that.
point, no other camera company ever has ever done it.
There's a reason. They're smarter than me, obviously. There's a reason they don't do it. There's a reason they don't.
Is Red planning to stop the original V-Raptor? Stop selling it, or is it
someday?
Yeah, there you go.
We're going to stop selling every camera someday.
Sutton wants to know if there's a Super 35. Never mind.
This is because he gave you that $1.99 at the beginning of the show.
The $9.99. It worked really well. And I hope everybody appreciates that. Jared's stream is really clear, and I blow him up just so you can all look around behind him.
I always forget.
It's been out of focus.
It's like everything important stay on that.
But what is that R3 pointing at, Jared? In the background.
Ooh.
Oh, there's intentionally something ahead of it.
Everyone was admiring your row of Crocs.
You're so smart. Yeah. Oh, my Toya wall. Did you guys all get the little Toya from the family or no? The little Croc?
I didn't get one. But I saw them, yeah.
But that's my Toya. I went down the rabbit hole on Crocs.
Yeah.
I mean,
I tried it. He laughed at me. We had a whole conversation about it
awesome.
like a few years back, and I was just like, they're not for me, man.
Oh,
yeah, I said the same thing.
Peter Choi is like, oh my God, you can get these little doodads that go into them, little cameras and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm a 12-year-old.
Yeah,
I'm a 12-year-old girl with my Crocs now because I have to put little stickers on them.
I just want to put little headlights in them.
It's insane. But I don't know, rabbit hole. That's me.
Well, I'm actually going to probably be the first one to leave because I want to do something with the rest of the light today.
The sunset, yeah.
Well, there's something very shiny very nearby me that's only available for about 2 hours. So
go do it, please. Everybody wants build. Really, the work Phil does is critical to you all. You all win when
we need the nerd.
We need him to go break stuff and fix stuff and test stuff. So
I appreciate that.
Please,
yeah, I'm having a good deal of fun, and I think it's even scarier the things that I am pushing the camera to do because I think it's not the best thing that people are doing what I'm experimenting with at the moment. So
yeah, go do it. I really appreciate everything you do, Phil. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, Scott. Congrats, Carlos, and good to see you, Jared.
Thank you, Phil.
And
good to see you.
I'm gonna get out of here before this thing explodes in my face anymore. So
yeah, you gotta do the RaptorX next time.
All right. Thanks.
Recovery.
All right. Can you talk about the intelligent autofocus face detection on the new V-Raptor-X?
A lot of people asking me, and I think we just had this conversation, didn't we, Scott, about the autofocus?
We did.
Yeah. There's not this whole new, brand new, crazy, better than Raptor OG autofocus on the camera. I don't know where that came from, unless I missed it.
I think people just interpreted it because it's now called intelligent autofocus. They're all like, "Oh, it's intelligent now." But some people didn't realize face tracking was in the latest builds.
Yeah, I mean, we released face detection on Komodo X in October, I think. I don't know if I got that right. Hopefully,
that's
maybe
about
I think it was October.
Maybe that was just my build. Yeah, there's not this breakthrough in autofocus technology in RaptorX versus Raptor. The autofocus is just going to keep getting better and better through all of that DSMC3. It kind of carries it. The global shutter, and this is why some people see a little bit better performance on Komodo X than on Raptor with some of the autofocus sometimes with moving stuff, is the global shutter can't, there's less artifacts, can help a little bit with that, but it's negligible. It's not worth really talking about.
I'm also glad that you guys added the whole, when it loses the face or if the face goes out of frame, you could pause the autofocus. That is clutch. That is fire. Yeah,
there's a lot of things, and DJI is actually doing some really cool stuff. I love DJI. I buy all of their stuff. But I mean, if every camera company had to kind of like fall off a cliff and go away, and I have to choose one, I feel like DJI would have a pretty good run on creating everything we needed. I think they'd be the good ones because, man, I just love their stuff, and I've just been testing their new. Oh
yeah, focus. Go in there.
That's a trend. But they've got some new focus stuff, which is incredible.
On V-Raptor-X versus V-Raptor, is there any difference in like sensitivity as far as low light? How sensitive they are? Do they perform the same, or?
You mean OG Raptor and
yeah.
Yep. No, they're almost some situations one will do better than the other and vice versa. They're almost exactly the same. The black level is a little bit different, but we're fixing that on both of them. But they're really, really close, within a quarter stop maybe between both of them, which is, again, incredible.
I've gotten a lot of questions, and obviously I haven't had a chance to shoot them side by side, but I've gotten a lot of questions about how well Komodo X and RaptorX intercut with each other. And that's what I'm going to be doing the majority of the day tomorrow. And tonight, I'm doing low light tonight.
That's a great test for you to do. Because I know obviously that's a lot of time that Graham and the team spend is on color science and getting those all to kind of match together. And that's why, for example, the black level is a little bit different on Raptor versus RaptorX, and bringing those in, we're actually fixing the black level on the Raptor minutely just to kind of bring that up with the newest of the new color science on RaptorX.
Sweet.
So you're testing
impressed with this. And Carlos was like, I would have been testing right now, but Scott roped me in.
Well, I just got a text that the crew showed up, and they're like, what time are we starting?
Well, I wanna go shoot too. This is my New Year's goal, is to shoot more, and I'm doing a horrible job at doing that. So maybe we all should wrap it up and go shoot something.
Right.
You too, Phil.
Anything?
You too.
About time lapse. Anything about time lapse features or anything coming or anything?
Nothing to talk about yet.
Nothing to talk about yet, Jose. You remember that last little part?
There you go. There's a new build coming for Raptor. I think in Lauren's going to kill me. 2 weeks maybe.
I'll put up a smiley face. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Put up the balloon. With the balloon. Not a bunch of show shot, and it's got nothing to do with time lapse, but there's a new build, at least for the Raptor guys, in 2 to 3 weeks. Thank you, Lauren. Just for the OG. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Lauren. Just for you guys with the OG Raptors, don't worry, we're pulling you forward. But that'll kind of do a little bit better on the color too, making everybody match.
Can you talk about the ARRI visit, or any chance of technology sharing or anything, or no?
Obviously I can't. But
So
that's
a no.
NBA up the wazoo. But I mean, I think everybody can kind of realize that, and it's what I spent, some time talking with Brandon on, which was great this morning, was, there's a lot of love going around, and we got to, all us filmmakers have to work together, and all the manufacturers and all the third-party guys have to all work together, because there's just too much mayhem out there to try to do this, by yourself.
And Omar, I think, he just announced that there's going to be a firmware update here shortly. I don't think you're going anywhere on any updates on DSMC3. Komodo's getting rather full, if not completely full, but everything else has got plenty of life.
Yeah, we got some room on Raptor. There's the only separation between Raptor OG and Raptor to be, there's a little bit difference in audio hardware, of course, so that's gonna be a little bit different on the firmwares, and of course the global shutter, the stuff tied to global shutter, like the extended highlights, that'll be different. But most of the other things that improve on RaptorX, luckily the Raptor are going to benefit from, and for the most part, Komodo X.
Okay, I will take this opportunity to kind of wrap things up. Is there anything, Jared, you wanted to mention that I didn't bring up, or anybody else didn't bring up, or anything? You have the floor.
I don't know. I just love this stuff.
No?
Is there
we love it too. What is that box behind you? The one that on the table back there. There's a box right back there. What is that? Not that one. No. Yeah. You're almost covering. No, I bumped up to 1080p resolution just for this live stream.
There's a reason why everything's a little out of focus back there.
Right? Except that one time when you zoomed back and the DJI followed you right along with focus. That's awesome.
Right, I can't believe Carlos picked up the R3 out of that little tiny corner. Just, you're good. You're sharp, man. That was a good spot. Good catch.
48 frames per second project base on Komodo OG. Well, you can't do it on 5K. What was the point? It's not as fun. I think we have reached that moment. Carlos and Jared, thank you both
for having me,
for joining. And absolutely.
Carlos, you have to go shoot.
Yep.
So, you do.
Thank you, Jared, and thank you, Scott, for having me. Really appreciate you both. This has been super awesome.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time code, keeping us honest down here too, Carlos.
That's good. I love it.
I only now realized that was running when you pointed it out. Because I keep looking at that table back there.
Scott, I don't know, your salt thing went away. Your little banner on the bottom went away. I like that.
Oh, my salt? Yeah. I was trying to be generous with your background.
There you go.
Every time it comes up, it makes everything a little bit smaller, and people are going to be like, I can't zoom in.
Exactly. That's why I like it.
Okay, guys, so I'm going to start thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Carlos.
Thank you, Carlos. And Scott, thank you, as always. Always a pleasure for your time.
Always a blast. I enjoy everything that you and Red and everything y'all stand for, as far as just pushing forward, literally pushing the entire industry forward, and then coming out and being human about it and talking about it to everybody. And it really kind of takes away all those mean, evil images that everybody keeps saying about Red all the time. It's like, they got like daggers. And
human might be a little bit over the top, but a little more human might be the right word for it. But
well,
thank you.
Yep, I greatly appreciate your time, and everyone have a fantastic weekend.
Good weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Buy some salt. Buy some salt and pepper. No, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jared and Carlos and Phil, for all joining. And I mean, yesterday was kind of a blow away for everybody, especially me. I was literally sitting on the couch. I was supposed to be shooting something, and I just sat there on the couch glued to it because, I mean, V-Raptor-X, incredible. But thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend. I'm having pizza. Are you having pizza? Because we're having pizza. I mean, why not? Everyone have a fantastic weekend. Become a channel member if you like. It's totally cool. And as always, as I like to leave it, don't let your passions center around your life. Let your life center around your passions. Bye, everyone.